What if the silence of the universe is not an absence, but a message waiting to be understood? In a vast cosmos full of endless possibilities, are we truly alone, or is the answer hiding just beyond our reach? For decades, scientists listened to the vast emptiness of space, hoping for a signal that would change everything. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, had been an ambitious, ongoing project, but it had yielded little more than silence. The universe, it seemed, was vast and indifferent. But then, one day, a signal came, a burst of energy so intense and unusual that it couldn't be explained by any known natural phenomenon. The frequency and pattern of the signal were unlike anything scientists had encountered before, causing a ripple of excitement and fear to run through the community. The discovery was the kind of moment that only happens once in a lifetime. The data didn't lie, and the signal, brief as it was, carried an unmistakable signature that suggested it was artificial. It wasn't the kind of signal you'd expect from a star or a distant galaxy. It had a rhythm, a repetition, a precision that seemed deliberate. For years, astronomers had hoped for just such a moment, but now that it had arrived, they found themselves grappling with the enormity of the discovery. This wasn't the first time we had heard strange signals from space, of course. There had been the famous "wow" signal in 1977, an intense burst of radio waves that lasted only 72 seconds, but left scientists perplexed. Was it a signal from an alien civilization, or just an unusual cosmic event that we could not yet explain? For years, SETI had listened for something similar, hoping for a repeat of that elusive burst, and yet, the years passed in silence. But now, this new signal, a burst from a distant part of the galaxy, felt different. It wasn't just a fleeting anomaly. It had the hallmarks of something intelligent, something trying to make contact. The reaction was mixed. There was the thrill of discovery, yes, but there was also fear. If this was truly an alien signal, then we were no longer alone in the universe. What did that mean for humanity's place in the cosmos? Were we prepared for this kind of knowledge? Could we even comprehend it? The excitement of the moment was tempered by the heavy realization that this discovery would open more questions than answers. There was, of course, skepticism. It's easy to jump to conclusions, especially when the unknown calls. Could this signal really be from an advanced civilization? Or was it simply another glitch in the system, a random burst of cosmic radiation that was misinterpreted? Scientists were quick to caution against getting too carried away. But the signal was different, and it couldn't be ignored. It was too structured, too patterned. In the world of astronomy, that was a rarity, a possible beacon from the stars. And so, we listened, waiting for the next clue, hoping that, somehow, this was just the beginning. For centuries, humanity has turned its gaze to the stars, wondering if we were truly alone in the vastness of space. The idea of intelligent life beyond Earth has captivated us, driving scientific pursuits and sparking the imaginations of countless individuals. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that our efforts to hear a response from the cosmos took shape in earnest, with the creation of radio telescopes and the dawn of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI. Radio telescopes, massive dishes that capture faint signals from distant space, became the cornerstone of humanity's search. These instruments, built to detect everything from the remnants of supernovae to the faint whispers of distant galaxies, were soon trained on the sky, hoping to catch a message that might indicate we weren't alone. It was a bold endeavor, one fueled by a mix of optimism and curiosity. What if there was someone out there, waiting for us to listen? The 1970s marked a key turning point in this quest, with the famous discovery of the WOW signal. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Ehman, working on a SETI project at the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio, saw something that made him stop in his tracks. It was a strong, narrowband radio signal, a burst that lasted for about 72 seconds, but one that seemed too precise to be anything other than artificial. Eamon wrote, "Wow," in the margins of the data, and the name stuck. The signal came from the constellation Sagittarius, but it never repeated. Despite years of further searches, no one has been able to explain it fully. The WOW signal remains one of the most tantalizing and perplexing moments in the history of SETI. While SETI continued its search for more signals, the discovery of the WOW signal set off a wave of excitement. For the first time, a signal from space seemed to suggest that intelligent life might be trying to reach out, but just as quickly, skepticism followed. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Or perhaps a misinterpretation of data? After all, the signal was never repeated, and without another instance, it was impossible to definitively say it came from an alien source. The societal response was as varied as it was intense. For some, the WOW signal and the prospect of discovering extraterrestrial life was nothing short of a cosmic revelation. The excitement was palpable, sparking new discussions about our place in the universe. But for others, the idea of contact with aliens raised unsettling questions about our future. What would it mean to share our planet with another intelligent species? Would it change how we viewed ourselves? And if the signal was a hoax or a fluke, what did it say about our own willingness to believe in the extraordinary? Despite the questions, the search for signals from space continued, and the WOW, the signal lingered in the background, a reminder of how close we had come to hearing something beyond our world. The fascination with the stars, with the idea of answering the ultimate question, are we alone, was only just beginning. The vastness of the universe is both awe-inspiring and confounding. For all its galaxies, stars, and planets, the silence of space can feel overwhelmingly profound. It's a paradox that has haunted our search for extraterrestrial life. If the universe is teeming with potentially habitable worlds, why does it feel so eerily quiet? This dilemma is known as the Fermi paradox, a question that lingers in the minds of scientists and dreamers alike. If there are so many stars, so many planets, and so many opportunities for life to exist, why haven't we heard from anyone? The odds seem stacked in favor of alien civilizations, yet all our efforts to listen through radio telescopes, space probes, and the most advanced technologies have returned nothing but silence. The paradox lies not in the question of whether life exists, but in the baffling lack of communication. Why, in a cosmos so vast, are we still waiting for a signal? Theories abound, each attempting to offer an explanation for the silence that blankets the universe. Some posit that intelligent civilizations are rare, an anomaly in the grand expanse of space. Perhaps the conditions necessary for life to evolve are so specific, so delicate, that it is no wonder we haven't encountered another civilization. Even if life does emerge on other planets, the chances that it will evolve into an advanced, communicative species may be slim. Others suggest that intelligent life may indeed be out there, but that it's simply not looking to make contact. One theory proposes that advanced civilizations deliberately avoid broadcasting their presence, operating under a kind of cosmic zoo hypothesis. According to this theory, extraterrestrial societies observe us without interference, choosing to remain silent so as not to disrupt our natural development, much like how we might avoid contact with an isolated indigenous tribe on Earth. The silence, then, might be deliberate, a protective measure to prevent unintended consequences. Alternatively, some scientists believe that the silence of the universe may be the result of technological limitations. Perhaps alien civilizations are simply too far away, and the signals we expect to receive are too weak to reach us. The vast distances between stars and galaxies make communication a daunting challenge, even for the most advanced civilizations. Signals sent millions or even billions of light-years away would likely fade before they reached another intelligent species, rendering interstellar communication practically impossible. Another unsettling theory is that perhaps we are simply not listening in the right way or at the right time. The nature of life and intelligence in the universe may be so different from our own that we are unable to recognize the signs. Alien civilizations might communicate in forms of energy, frequency, or technology that we cannot yet comprehend, leaving us to search in vain for signals that don't fit our expectations. No matter the theory, the result is the same. The silence remains, profound and unyielding. As we continue to scan the cosmos, the question lingers: are we alone in the vastness of space, or is there someone out there, waiting to be discovered? The quiet of the universe is a riddle that may never be solved, but it is one that continues to drive us, pushing the boundaries of science and imagination in search of an answer. In 2007, astronomers detected something extraordinary, an intense burst of radio waves that lasted only a few milliseconds, but emitted more energy than the sun does in an entire day. This fleeting signal, later named a fast radio burst, FRB, set off a wave of curiosity and confusion within the scientific community. While brief, the discovery hinted at a phenomenon unlike anything previously observed in the universe. These bursts of energy, coming from distant galaxies, are incredibly powerful, but their origin remained a mystery. FRBs are unlike anything we've encountered before. They don't fit neatly into the patterns of known astrophysical phenomena. Initially, scientists speculated that they might be caused by something mundane, like an isolated stellar explosion or a malfunction in the instruments. However, as more FRBs were discovered, it became clear that something far more complex and possibly extraterrestrial was at play. The signals are so brief, yet so strong, that no natural phenomenon has been found to explain them fully. At first, researchers thought they might be linked to the collapse of neutron stars or the collision of black holes, but those theories haven't satisfied all the data. The mystery deepened further when a handful of FRBs were discovered to repeat. These recurring signals raised the possibility that they could be artificial in origin, perhaps a form of communication from an advanced civilization. FRBs have an uncanny precision. The fact that they are so brief and so powerful suggests a deliberate, high-energy source, something far more advanced than our current technology. If this were an alien signal, it would be a remarkable breakthrough in the search for extraterrestrial life. The idea that an alien civilization could be sending these signals across the cosmos to communicate or even to be detected is a possibility that has intrigued scientists and theorists alike. Given their strange and repetitive nature, FRBs could represent a type of signal we simply don't yet understand, a form of communication or information exchange that is vastly different from anything we're capable of. While many FRBs remain one-off bursts that fade into the cosmic background, others continue to puzzle researchers. The latest data, including the identification of an FRB that repeated with precision, has fueled further speculation about their possible artificial origin. Could this be the first sign of an intergalactic message? Could these bursts be attempts at contact, a universal beacon calling out across the vast expanse of space? As the study of FRBs progresses, the mystery deepens. The search for answers grows more urgent, with each new discovery adding a new layer to the enigma. While we still lack definitive proof that FRBs are alien signals, their strange, unexplained nature continues to spark the imagination of scientists who now must consider the possibility that we may not be the only sentient beings reaching out across the cosmos. Fast radio bursts, FRBs, have captivated scientists and researchers ever since their first discovery, sparking a flurry of speculation about their origins. These enigmatic signals, which last only a few milliseconds but release an immense amount of energy, are unlike any other known cosmic phenomenon. The fact that they are so brief, yet so powerful, has left scientists scrambling for answers as they defy easy explanation. The initial assumption was that FRBs might be the result of some rare astrophysical event, such as the collision of neutron stars or the explosion of supernovae. However, as more FRBs were detected, It became clear that these bursts weren't just the occasional outliers of space, they were regular, predictable events. Even more puzzling were the bursts that repeated in a similar pattern. This suggested that whatever was producing these signals wasn't random, but rather something highly organized and deliberate. Several theories have emerged to explain the origin of FRBs. One of the most widely accepted is that they might be the result of magnetars, highly magnetized neutron stars that emit powerful bursts of energy. These stars are incredibly dense and have magnetic fields billions of times stronger than Earth's. However, the more scientists study FRBs, the more this theory falls short. The repeated signals and the intense energy emitted don't quite align with what is expected from a magnetar. Some have even suggested that FRBs could be the result of some yet-to-be-understood cosmic event, perhaps something entirely new in the world of astrophysics. But there's another theory that can't be ignored. Could these signals be artificial in origin? The idea of an advanced alien civilization sending these bursts across the cosmos has gained traction, especially in light of the precision with which some FRBs repeat. The possibility that these signals could be deliberate, a form of communication from extraterrestrial life, is tantalizing. It's an idea that has long been part of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, but until now, no one expected that the signals might be so direct, so purposeful. What sets FRBs apart from other cosmic phenomena is their intensity and their brevity. While other signals from space, like pulsars or quasars, emit consistent waves over time, FRBs are swift and explosive, with no clear pattern. The energy they release in such a short time is unmatched by any other known source, making them stand out even more in the quiet expanse of the universe. As scientists continue to study FRBs, the questions only multiply. Could these bursts be a signal from another galaxy, an invitation, or a message we're only beginning to understand? Or are they simply the result of a natural, yet still unexplained cosmic process? While the theories are many, the true origin of FRBs remains as elusive as ever, leaving scientists to wonder whether they are indeed witnessing the first hints of extraterrestrial intelligence, or simply a cosmic anomaly that is far stranger than we ever imagined. In the vast expanse of space, signals come and go, but there are some that linger in the mind long after the instruments fall silent. One such signal was detected in 2017, an anomaly so peculiar that it confounded scientists and sparked debates within the scientific community. The signal was unlike anything seen before, leading to a mix of initial skepticism, cautious analysis, and eventual fascination. The signal, a rapid burst of electromagnetic radiation, was recorded by the CHIME radio telescope in Canada. At first, the detection seemed like another typical fast radio burst, FRB, just another fleeting cosmic event captured for study. The researchers initially dismissed it as part of the usual background noise, a random occurrence that didn't warrant further attention. After all, the universe was full of such inexplicable signals, most of which turned out to have natural origins. But something about this signal felt different. It wasn't just the typical FRB pattern. There was a quality to it that suggested it wasn't random, that there was something deliberate behind it, something not easily explainable by the usual astrophysical processes. The curiosity within the scientific community began to grow. Some scientists argued that the signal's strange characteristics were simply the result of a measurement error or an interference pattern from human-made satellites. But as more data was collected, it became clear that this was no mere mistake. The signal was too consistent, too precise. It didn't match anything from known cosmic sources. Slowly, what had started as a brief and dismissible anomaly turned into a subject of intense scrutiny. Researchers from around the world began re-examining the data, carefully analyzing the frequency, duration, and intensity of the signal. What they found was perplexing. The signal exhibited patterns that suggested a level of intelligence behind it, much like the kind of signals scientists had hoped to detect for decades, a potential communication from beyond Earth. Though the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence sending a signal was still considered unlikely, it couldn't be entirely ruled out. The debate continued to build, with skeptics pointing to natural phenomena like pulsars or black holes as possible sources of the signal, while others suggested that the signal could indeed be a deliberate attempt at communication. But the growing realization was that no one knew for sure. As more time passed, the signal's origin remained elusive, and the scientific community grew more intrigued, not just by the signal itself, but by the very nature of the questions it raised. What if this wasn't just another unexplained cosmic event? What if it was the first true evidence of something else, something alien? The mystery surrounding this signal highlighted the uncertainty that comes with searching the stars. Even with all the technology at humanity's disposal, the universe is vast and unpredictable, offering up signals and clues that may not be what they first appear. The growing interest in this unexplained phenomenon was a reminder that sometimes the most significant discoveries in science aren't the ones we plan for, but the ones that surprise us, signals that weren't supposed to be there, yet somehow, in the vast quiet of space, found their way to Earth. And then, just as the world began to settle into a rhythm of uncertainty, another anomaly appeared. It was subtle at first, an obscure ripple in the data, so faint that it might have been dismissed as noise. But it wasn't. It grew, slowly but steadily, until it demanded attention. The signal, now known as the echo, was unlike anything recorded before. It wasn't a single burst, nor was it a series of rapid pulses like those of the fast radio bursts. Instead, it unfolded in a slow, methodical pattern, almost like a musical composition, each repetition more complex than the last. The rhythm was unmistakable. It was as if the signal had been encoded, layered with deliberate precision. It wasn't the kind of message you would expect from a cosmic anomaly. It felt personal. Scientists initially debated whether it was a glitch, an error in the system, or perhaps interference from a distant satellite. But the more they analyzed, the clearer it became. This wasn't a mistake. This was something designed. Theories exploded. Could this be a response to our own signals, sent out years ago during the early days of SETI? Was it an ancient communication from a civilization long gone? Or could this be the first sign of an active, intelligent presence, reaching out across the stars in ways we had never anticipated? In the heart of the scientific community, a debate raged. Some were convinced that this was our moment, humanity's first real contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Others were more cautious, suggesting that the signal's complexity could still be explained by advanced natural phenomena. There were whispers of classified projects, of covert messages hidden in the vastness of space by those who had been listening long before SETI. The uncertainty gnawed at everyone. But then, something startling happened. The signal didn't just fade away. It began to evolve, adapting to the instruments that captured it. The pattern wasn't static. It responded intelligently to the questions posed by the scientists who were tracking it. When certain frequencies were tuned to a higher pitch, the signal would shift, as if acknowledging the adjustment. When scientists tried to send out their own messages to see if there was any response, the signal would pause for a moment before returning, subtly altered. This behavior was extraordinary. It wasn't just a message, it was an exchange. The signal seemed to be learning, adapting, almost as though it were alive. As weeks turned into months, the world watched as the mystery deepened. The possibility of communication was no longer confined to abstract theories. The signal was speaking to us, and we, for the first time in human history, were beginning to answer. The implications were enormous. Was this the first step in a conversation that could span the cosmos? What did it mean for the future of humanity, for our understanding of life, the universe, and everything in between? As experts in linguistics, astrophysics, and artificial intelligence gathered to decode the signal, a startling realization began to emerge. The pattern was not just complex, but layered in ways that suggested the signal was more than just communication. It was a puzzle, a test. Whoever or whatever was sending it was watching our response. They wanted to know how we would react, whether we were capable of understanding what was being offered. The first breakthrough came when an international team of scientists, led by Dr. Evelyn Zhang, a specialist in neural networks, made an astonishing discovery. The signal's pattern mimicked certain human cognitive processes, the way the brain processes information, organizes thoughts, and even adapts to new stimuli. It was as if the signal was trying to communicate through our own form of understanding. There were no immediate answers, of course. No sudden revelations about who was sending the message or why. But there was hope. For the first time, the question, "Are we alone?" was no longer a philosophical musing. It was a practical reality. There was someone out there, and they were waiting for us to engage. The realization was humbling. The quiet of the universe had been shattered, but the silence wasn't over. The world was left on the edge of something vast and unknowable. What lay beyond this first message? What would the next exchange bring? Would humanity be ready to meet the challenge? As the message continued to unfold, one thing became clear. The silence of the universe was no longer an absence, it was a question. The answer was out there, somewhere, waiting to be understood. And now, we had the key to begin unlocking it. The signal had been detected almost casually at first, a faint disturbance in the noise of space. But as the data poured in, it became undeniable. What was once dismissed as a glitch soon proved to be something far more deliberate, something unlike any other cosmic anomaly. Scientists were now faced with a question they hadn't truly considered before. What if these signals, these bursts of energy, were not natural at all? For decades, SETI had scanned the heavens in search of an answer to the age-old question, "Are we alone in the universe?" The search had yielded little beyond radio interference, the occasional cosmic ray, and the famous, still unexplained wow signal. Yet in the silence of the universe, the faintest hint of something purposeful had emerged. A rhythm, a pulse, a pattern that suggested intent. Could it be possible that the very thing they'd been waiting for had already arrived, disguised within the noise? As researchers pored over the data, the oddity of the signal's precision became impossible to ignore. It wasn't random radiation or an undetected celestial event. It had structure, a kind of cadence that felt artificial. Every frequency, every repetition, seemed too coordinated to have come from a natural source. The very fabric of its transmission seemed designed to be noticed. Some scientists, ever cautious, held their skepticism close. Could it simply be an echo of some known, yet still elusive, astrophysical phenomenon? Perhaps a new type of pulsar, or a strange flare from a distant black hole. These theories offered comfort, but they didn't explain the signal's deliberate pacing, its clear, structured intervals. As more data arrived, the inconsistencies with natural phenomena mounted, and so did the arguments for a more radical explanation. It was then that the implications began to take root. If this was indeed an artificial signal, one crafted by a hand, not of nature, but of intelligence, it would forever alter our understanding of the universe. To have proof of another civilization, no matter how distant, would rewrite the rules of existence. The isolation we had assumed was part of our destiny would no longer be certain. If life existed elsewhere, what kind of society had created such a message? Was it a civilization far more advanced than ours, sending out a beacon? Or was it an invitation, an attempt to bridge the infinite gap that separated us? The silence of the universe, once overwhelming, now felt suffocating. There was more out there, something waiting just beyond our reach, and the possibility that it was already trying to speak to us, to make contact, turned everything upside down. Could we be ready? Were we prepared for the knowledge, for the responsibility that would come with the answer to that ultimate question: what if we're not alone? The signal had come, but with it came a new, daunting challenge: the search for patterns. In the vastness of space, where chaos seemed to reign, it was the presence of order, of something deliberate, that would reveal whether this was a message or merely an anomaly. Scientists and enthusiasts alike pored over the data, their eyes scouring the numbers for a rhythm, a sequence, something that hinted at intelligence behind the transmission. The methods employed were as varied as the theories that surrounded the signal. Computer algorithms designed to detect regularities in the data ran tirelessly, sifting through mountains of information at speeds far beyond human capability. Each iteration revealed potential patterns, repetitions, frequencies, intervals that might suggest purpose. But in the field of SETI, where every data point was a potential breakthrough or a dead end, even the smallest clue was treated with reverence. At the heart of the search was pattern recognition, the fundamental tool in the quest for extraterrestrial intelligence. It was the very thing that set human intelligence apart from the rest of the natural world: the ability to discern order from chaos, meaning from randomness. If this signal was truly artificial, its design would reveal itself through a series of recurring motifs, structured sequences that could be decoded with the right approach. It was the same process that allowed us to make sense of the world around us, recognizing the familiar in the unfamiliar, identifying shapes in clouds or patterns in the stars. But now, it was more than a human instinct, it was a method of survival. As the search for patterns deepened, a subtle shift occurred. What had begun as a scientific endeavor gradually became something more profound. The question of intelligent life was no longer just a quest for knowledge. It was an inquiry into the nature of existence itself. The possibility that we were not alone in the universe introduced a new layer to the patterns we sought. If this signal was artificial, what did it mean about our place in the cosmos? Were we part of a larger web of existence, or was this moment a solitary anomaly, forever bound to the silence of space? The psychological impact of detecting a pattern was immense. For scientists, the recognition of intelligence behind the signal would not simply be a professional triumph. It would be a revelation of our deepest fears and hopes. Would this knowledge elevate humanity, offering us a glimpse into the future? Or would it reveal our insignificance in the grand, indifferent universe? The discovery of a pattern, especially one suggesting contact with extraterrestrial life, would force humanity to confront its own existential dilemmas. We would have to reconsider our place in the universe and, perhaps, our own understanding of intelligence and what it means to be human. In every sequence, in every repetition, the search for meaning intensified. The signal was more than a message from the stars. It was a mirror, reflecting the questions that had shaped our species for millennia. As the patterns took shape, they became not just a key to understanding the cosmos, but a doorway to a new era of human consciousness, one that would forever change the way we saw the universe and our place within it. The nights were the hardest. There was a certain stillness in the air, a heaviness that pressed down on those who waited in the dark for the faintest trace of the signal. Scientists, those modern-day explorers, sat at their consoles, their eyes fixed on screens that hummed with an endless stream of data. Outside, the world slept, oblivious to the quiet tension that filled the rooms. Inside, however, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Every beep, every flicker of the monitor was a reminder that they were on the verge of something extraordinary. But for all their expertise, all their technology, there was still an undeniable sense of vulnerability. The unknown hung over them, and it was a presence that never truly left. Some nights, the work felt endless. Hours would stretch on, each minute dragging as they sifted through data, checking for inconsistencies, for patterns, for the signal that might change everything. The coffee would grow cold beside them, untouched, forgotten in the fog of exhaustion. They spoke in soft murmurs, offering brief exchanges of encouragement or analysis before returning to the quiet hum of the machine. The real work happened in silence, punctuated only by the occasional burst of static, the faint crackling of the radio, or the distant rattle of the equipment. And then there were the moments when it seemed as though the signal would appear when the static shifted just slightly, or when the rhythm of the frequencies matched something familiar. But it was never enough. There was always something elusive, something that slipped away the moment it was grasped. It was both maddening and mesmerizing. They were so close, and yet so far. The frustration was palpable. For every promising lead, there was another dead end, another false alarm. The team grew accustomed to the cycle of hope and disappointment, but it never became easier. Each breakthrough that fizzled out left behind a sense of defeat, a gnawing emptiness that no amount of analysis could fill. And yet, they could not stop. The signal, the message, it was out there. They could feel it, even when they couldn't see it. But it wasn't just frustration that made those nights so difficult. It was the eerie feeling of listening to something unknown, something so far beyond human understanding. To listen to the universe, to open oneself to the endless possibilities that might be waiting, was to confront the vastness of existence itself. Every signal, no matter how fleeting or strange, carried with it a weight, a reminder that, out there in the silence, something else might be listening too. The universe was speaking, and they were trying to understand its language, all the while acutely aware that they might never fully comprehend it. As the nights wore on, exhaustion became an old companion. But so did hope. It was a delicate balance, one that required every ounce of focus and perseverance. And through it all, they continued to listen. Because even in the dark, they knew they were part of something bigger, something that might one day answer the questions they had carried for so long. And so, they waited. The idea that alien civilizations might be trying to contact us was one that had always occupied the realm of speculation, a distant dream or nightmare depending on one's perspective. But now, with the signals arriving each one different, each one more deliberate, there was a new sense of urgency in the air. It was no longer a question of if they existed. The real question had become, could they be trying to talk to us? At first, the signals seemed too bizarre, too alien to be anything but the flukes of the cosmos. But with each new transmission, the patterns became more discernible. There was intention in the frequencies, structure in the chaos. The signals weren't random bursts of energy, they were messages, or at least the beginnings of one. It was as if someone, or something, was reaching out from the deep, vast stretches of space, extending a hand in our direction, waiting for us to respond. If these signals were indeed from an intelligent source, the implications were staggering. This would be humanity's first encounter with an entirely different form of consciousness. It would be the moment that every sci-fi novel, every speculative theory, had prepared us for. But it would also be the moment we'd never been fully ready for. What would the signals say about the civilizations beyond our planet? Were they peaceful, hostile, or was their message something entirely beyond our comprehension, a form of communication so foreign that we would spend lifetimes trying to decode it? There were more questions than answers, and with each passing day, the weight of the discovery grew heavier. The signals might be an invitation to join a galactic community, or perhaps they were a warning, a sign that we were not yet ready to take our place among the stars, or perhaps they were the remnants of a dying civilization, trying to reach the farthest corners of space in one final plea before it vanished. The possibilities were endless, and yet none of them seemed quite right. None of them offered the certainty that we, as a species, so desperately craved. And then there was the question of whether we were even prepared for the truth. Could humanity, with all its divisions, fears, and uncertainties, truly comprehend such a revelation? The psychological and philosophical toll of realizing we were not alone in the universe, that we were only a small part of a much larger, more complex reality, would be immense. It could shatter our sense of identity, alter the very foundation of our understanding of life and intelligence. In the quiet of the night, as scientists worked tirelessly to decode the signals, there was an unspoken fear hanging in the air. We might not be ready. We might never be. But the signals kept coming, and with them, the undeniable truth. Someone, or something, was trying to talk to us, as humanity's search for extraterrestrial life continued. The question of ethics began to hover over the entire endeavor. The signals had arrived, unmistakable in their precision, their pattern too deliberate to be dismissed. But with each new discovery, a deeper, more unsettling question emerged. What are the ethical implications of listening to the cosmos? The search for alien life had always been framed as a noble pursuit, an endeavor driven by curiosity, a desire to know our place in the universe. But now, as the signals began to resemble more than just natural noise, the ethical landscape shifted. Was it right to keep listening? What if the signal's source wasn't benign, but something more dangerous? A civilization whose intentions were unknown. The very act of listening, of opening ourselves to the cosmos, carried consequences that no one had fully considered. If we were to make contact, what would the repercussions be? Could a simple exchange of information lead to unintended consequences? The history of human interaction with other civilizations was rife with stories of misunderstanding, of one species meeting another only to lead to disaster. If a signal was, indeed, a message, what might it hold for us? Could it be a gift, an opportunity to join a wider galactic community? Or was it more likely that it was a warning, a plea, a sign that humanity was not yet ready for such a revelation? There was no way to know. The ethical dilemma deepened when it was suggested that we, too, might one day be responsible for sending messages back into space. Should we reach out to these civilizations, or should we remain silent, wary of the potential danger that such contact could bring? The debate split the scientific community. Some argued that silence was not just prudent, but essential, that to speak into the vast emptiness of space could be an invitation to something we could not possibly comprehend. Others, more optimistic, believed that humanity had a duty to seek connection, to push the boundaries of its understanding and explore the possibilities that lay beyond the stars. What kind of message should we send, if any? Should we introduce ourselves, tell the universe about our achievements, our hopes, our dreams? Or should we remain humble, cautious, acknowledging the possibility that there might be dangers waiting for us on the other side of the communication barrier? The question was one of profound importance, one that could shape humanity's future for centuries, if not longer. And so, the ethical conundrum continued to grow, a silent question that no one could truly answer. To listen was one thing, but to respond to make our presence known was a decision that carried the weight of an uncertain future. Should we reach out into the void, or should we remain silent, listening for answers that may never come? The cosmos, with all its mysteries, seemed to hold the answer, but perhaps it was one that humanity was not yet ready to hear. As the signals continued to pour in, another startling possibility began to take shape. What if we weren't just hearing messages from civilizations far away, but from civilizations long gone? The thought was as unsettling as it was fascinating. Could it be that we were listening not to the living, but to the ghosts of ancient civilizations, their signals traveling across the vast stretches of space and time, only now reaching our ears? The discovery wasn't entirely new. For decades, scientists had collected data from the cosmos, signals from distant stars, and bursts of energy that seemed to defy explanation. Many of these had been catalogued and filed away, dismissed as background noise or cosmic anomalies. But in recent years, advances in technology and the refinement of data analysis methods had allowed researchers to re-examine those old records. When they did, some signals began to stand out in ways they hadn't before. What had once been dismissed as insignificant was now being reinterpreted and the possibility emerged that these signals were not just strange, but deliberate. There was a chilling idea at the heart of this revelation, that some of the signals humanity had detected were messages from civilizations that had already perished. What if the signals were sent centuries, or even millennia ago, only now arriving on Earth due to the vast distances between stars and the slow travel of light? If that were true, we might not be hearing an invitation to join an interstellar community, but the fading echoes of civilizations that had long since vanished. The thought carried with it a deep sense of isolation, as if the message we were receiving was not a sign of hope, but a reminder of our own fragility. It was impossible to know for sure, but the possibility stirred something deep within the scientific community. Could these ancient signals be warning us, offering insight into the rise and fall of civilizations that had traveled down the same path humanity was now walking? If we could decipher the meaning behind these long-forgotten messages, perhaps we could learn something critical about our own future. Could these signals be a map pointing us toward a fate we could avoid, or a future we would inevitably share? The implications were profound. To think that we might be hearing the last words of a civilization that had achieved what we only dreamed of, that had created something truly extraordinary, only to fall silent, was both sobering and humbling. The signals were not just scientific phenomena, they were historical artifacts, echoes from a distant past that were now part of humanity's search for its place in the universe. But the real question was, would we heed the warnings they might offer, or would we follow the same path, blind to the lessons of those who had come before? The ancient signals raised more questions than answers, their true meaning still elusive. But in those fleeting bursts of energy, the past seemed to speak to us, whispering across the stars, waiting for us to listen, and perhaps, and to learn. For all the excitement that accompanied the discovery of the signals, there came a moment, a chilling moment, when the burst of activity suddenly stopped. One by one, the signals that had once pierced the cosmic silence with such clarity began to fade, slipping into nothingness as quickly as they had arrived. What had once seemed like an unfolding mystery, a story written in the stars, now felt like a riddle without an answer. The silence after the burst was deafening, and the scientific community was left grappling with an unsettling question: why did they stop? At first, it was easy to dismiss. Perhaps the equipment was faulty, or the data wasn't as reliable as it seemed. But as time passed, and no further signals appeared, doubts began to creep in. Some bursts had been regular, their frequency like a ticking clock. Others had been more erratic, yet their pattern unmistakable. And then, just like that, they were gone. No warning, no explanation, only an emptiness where there had once been sound. Theories sprang up in abundance. Some suggested that the signals had been a one-off event, a rare occurrence that would never repeat. Perhaps they were the result of a natural phenomenon that was so brief and intense that it could never be replicated. Others speculated that the bursts had come from a distant source that had somehow shifted, perhaps a star or a black hole that had moved in such a way that it no longer emitted the same energy. There were even those who feared that the signals had been intentionally terminated, as if the sender had deliberately decided to end the communication. But no matter how many explanations were put forth, the silence remained. Each new theory brought with it more questions. If the bursts were indeed from an intelligent source, what had caused the interruption? Was this part of a larger pattern, something we just didn't yet understand? Were the signals simply designed to be temporary, meant to test our response, and once that was achieved, they ceased? Or was there something more sinister at play? Could it be that the very act of detecting the signal had triggered a response from the source, and in some way, the message had been withdrawn, as if the unknown presence had decided that humanity was not yet ready for contact? In the quiet that followed, scientists could only speculate. Theories ranged from the plausible to the outlandish, each seeking to explain the sudden disappearance of the signals. Perhaps the sender had realized they were being listened to, and withdrawing was a form of cosmic self-preservation. Maybe we had been too hasty in our analysis, and the signals weren't as intentional as they had seemed. Or perhaps, as some feared, we were too late, too slow to respond, and whatever was out there had simply moved on, leaving us behind in the silence of space. No answers emerged, only the lingering question: why did the signals stop? The silence after the burst was not just a cosmic quiet. It was a mystery that would haunt those who had listened, leaving them to wonder if the universe was forever full of unanswered questions, or if, one day, the silence would speak again. As the silence of the universe weighed heavily on humanity's search for extraterrestrial life, a new era of technology began to shape the future of the hunt. Advances in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and sophisticated algorithms were slowly opening doors that had once been locked behind a barrier of limited understanding. What was once a dream, a speculative quest, was becoming increasingly tangible. The tools of tomorrow were enabling scientists to do what had once been unimaginable: peer deeper into the vast expanse of space, listen with sharper ears, and analyze patterns with unprecedented speed and precision. Quantum computing was perhaps the most significant breakthrough in this new age. Its potential to process vast amounts of data far outstripped anything traditional computers could achieve. The search for alien signals had always been hampered by the sheer volume of information that had to be analyzed. But with quantum computing, the equations and algorithms needed to sift through this data could be executed at a pace that seemed almost magical. What once took months or even years of analysis could now be done in mere hours. This shift meant that scientists could not only monitor more frequencies across wider stretches of time, but also detect signals that might have previously slipped through the cracks, the faint whispers in the cosmic wind that would have been lost in the noise. Alongside quantum computing, the development of advanced algorithms, self-learning systems capable of identifying patterns, had revolutionized how scientists approached the data. These algorithms weren't just tools to sort through signals. They were evolving entities, capable of learning from each signal they encountered, refining their ability to detect intelligence in the chaotic sea of cosmic noise. What had once been a tedious process of manual filtering and hypothesis testing was now an automated, dynamic search. Every signal detected, every anomaly cataloged, became part of an evolving model that could predict and anticipate what to listen for next. As a result of these advancements, the very nature of the search for alien life began to change. With each passing year, the frequency of potential alien signals seemed to increase. The once fragmented, uncertain glimpses into the cosmos were now becoming more frequent, more coherent. A new rhythm began to emerge, and the signals, faint and distant though they were, became clearer. For the first time, there was a sense that the universe might be speaking to us, but not in the way we had imagined. Rather than bombarding us with loud, unambiguous messages, the signals arrived in quiet pulses, a language we had yet to fully comprehend. This new age of communication, fueled by technology, seemed to open the floodgates to a future where humanity might no longer be searching in the dark. It was as though the universe had always been there, speaking to us in its own way, but only now were we equipped to understand. The question that once lingered, "Are we alone?" was beginning to feel less like a mystery and more like a matter of when, not if, we would finally find the answer. With these advancements, humanity had taken its first real steps toward the stars, and the frequency of alien signals could only grow, forever altering our understanding of the cosmos. Amid the growing excitement over the discovery of alien signals, a quieter, more unsettling narrative began to emerge, one whispered in back rooms, discussed in hushed tones, and often dismissed as the work of conspiracy theorists. Claims from whistleblowers and individuals with insider knowledge suggested that humanity might have already received signals far more profound than the public was aware. These individuals spoke of hidden communications, buried in secret archives, and of signals that had been suppressed or ignored entirely. For years, some believed that governments around the world had intercepted signals from extraterrestrial sources, but had deliberately chosen not to disclose them. According to these whistleblowers, certain signals, too precise or too unsettling in their implications, were tucked away in classified files, their true nature hidden from the public eye. It was a theory that seemed far-fetched, yet the more one listened to these accounts, the more difficult it became to dismiss entirely. The idea that governments might have chosen silence, either out of fear or a desire to control information, was not without precedent in history. If extraterrestrial life was truly making contact, what would the social, political, and economic ramifications be? Was it safer to keep such knowledge hidden, to control the narrative rather than risk chaos? In some of these mysterious cases, the signals were said to have been identified, then quickly reclassified as natural phenomena or dismissed as anomalies. Documents were reported to have been shredded, files sealed, and investigations quietly abandoned, leaving behind only a vague sense of something important that had been lost or intentionally erased. These stories often referred to specific instances where strange signals had been received, only for them to be quickly forgotten once they entered the realm of classified information. The government's stance, however, was always one of careful denial or cautious ambiguity. Public statements from agencies like NASA or SETI were measured, rarely revealing the full scope of what they might know. The official narrative, carefully constructed, suggested that the search for extraterrestrial life was ongoing and that there was still no definitive proof of intelligent contact. While the public was encouraged to look to the stars with curiosity and wonder, the more pressing questions about what had already been discovered remained frustratingly unanswered. Was it fear of panic, the risk of societal upheaval, or a need to maintain control over the flow of information that kept these secrets buried? As the debate continued, the lines between fact and fiction began to blur. Whistleblowers and conspiracy theorists presented their evidence, sometimes with a sense of undeniable conviction, but without definitive proof. Yet, each new revelation, no matter how speculative, only deepened the intrigue. What was really being hidden from the public? And, more importantly, if there had been messages from other civilizations, what had they said, and why was it being kept from us? In the end, the silence surrounding these mysterious communications was just as telling as the signals themselves. The moment that humanity had longed for, yet feared, finally arrived. After years of listening, waiting, and speculating, we received a clear, unmistakable response from an alien civilization. The signal was unlike any that had come before. Its pattern was not only structured but intelligible, its message direct. For the first time, we understood. The message was not a garbled series of frequencies or a fleeting pulse of energy. It was coherent, a language of sorts, one that we could decipher. It wasn't just a communication, it was a conversation. And the implications were staggering. The societal reaction was immediate, overwhelming, and multifaceted. News outlets scrambled to cover every aspect of the discovery. Experts were called upon to interpret the significance of the message, and governments around the world convened emergency meetings. Some responded with excitement, the promise of a new era of understanding and unity. Others reacted with fear, unsure of what such a communication truly meant. Were we being invited into a cosmic community, or was this a signal of something far darker? The psychological and philosophical impact was immediate. Humanity had spent centuries wondering if we were truly alone in the universe. Now, we knew we weren't. But the question that arose was more profound. What does this mean for us? In a world already fractured by division, the response to the message was polarized. Some saw the arrival of the message as a moment of hope, an opportunity to unite humanity in the face of something larger than ourselves. Others, however, worried about the consequences of engaging with a civilization so far beyond our understanding. The question of trust loomed large. Could we truly communicate with these beings, or were we simply too different? Would their intentions be benign, or were they a harbinger of something far more dangerous? Yet, beyond the societal reactions, there was the practical matter of how to respond. The logistics of formulating a reply were as complicated as the message itself. Who would speak for humanity? How could we craft a response that conveyed both our curiosity and our caution? The scientists who had long dedicated themselves to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence suddenly found themselves tasked with a far more daunting responsibility: to translate humanity's response into a language that could be understood across the vast expanse of space. As the response was being drafted, the world held its breath. The possibilities of what could come next were endless. Would the aliens answer back in kind, perhaps with more questions, more insights into their world? Or was the message a one-off, the result of some cosmic accident? And if communication continued, what would it reveal about the civilization that sent it? Would we become part of a larger interstellar network, or would we remain isolated, a curiosity to be observed from afar? As the first response was transmitted into the void, a new chapter of humanity's story began. The questions that had haunted us for so long, are we alone? What is our place in the cosmos? Now had answers, but those answers were only the beginning of a new set of mysteries. The moment the signal arrived, a wave of excitement washed over the scientific community. But soon, it became clear that the real challenge wasn't deciphering the message, it was understanding it. For all of humanity's advancements in science and technology, there remained a fundamental limitation: our frame of reference. We were attempting to comprehend a form of intelligence that might not even follow the same principles of logic and communication that shaped our own existence. What if the aliens had no concept of language as we understood it? What if their intelligence was based on entirely different cognitive frameworks, systems of thought that didn't align with our own? The idea of encountering intelligence that was not shaped by human experiences, biology, or evolution seemed like a philosophical puzzle at first, but it quickly became a very real, practical issue. Could alien beings even think in ways we could understand? Their cognitive processes could be radically different, structured by senses or methods of perception we didn't possess or couldn't even imagine. If their reality was vastly unlike ours, how could we bridge the gap between our minds and theirs? The signals we received, while unmistakably deliberate, might have been designed using a logic entirely foreign to us, a logic that didn't follow our rules of grammar or structure. The question of communication became one of the most profound dilemmas of the moment. Could the aliens use methods of interaction that were completely outside the scope of our experience? They might not have words, let alone the concept of written language. Perhaps their messages were encoded through sound frequencies, electromagnetic pulses, or even patterns in light. Maybe their language was visual or mathematical, conveyed through dimensions or abstract patterns we could not yet decode. Our understanding of what constitutes communication was based entirely on our own limited experience, and now, we were faced with the terrifying possibility that we might have to rethink the very concept of intelligence. As the message continued to unfold, it became increasingly clear that it didn't adhere to human logic. The patterns seemed to grow in complexity, but there was no clear, linear progression that made sense to our understanding of cause and effect. It was as if the message itself was a reflection of a completely different form of reasoning, one that might have been logical to its creators, but utterly baffling to us. Our minds were trained to search for sequences, for familiar patterns of cause and consequence. Yet the message offered no such clarity. The challenge wasn't just understanding what was being said, it was even recognizing that there was something being said at all. The message, in its alien complexity, might not even have a direct translation into human thought. Yet, if humanity was to truly make sense of this encounter, we would have to expand our definition of intelligence, broaden our understanding of communication. What if the aliens were trying to express something fundamentally alien to us, a concept that didn't even fit within the boundaries of our own cognitive processes? For the first time, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence was no longer about finding life that resembled us in any way. It was about confronting the possibility that intelligence could exist in forms we couldn't predict, let alone understand. The shape of alien intelligence, it seemed, was far more complex than anything we had ever imagined. For as long as humanity has looked up at the stars, the dream of first contact has lingered at the edge of our imagination, a tantalizing idea that has both inspired and haunted us. The notion of encountering another intelligent species, of making contact with beings from distant worlds, has fueled countless stories, theories, and fantasies. From the earliest days of science fiction to the latest speculations in the scientific community, first contact has become one of humanity's most enduring obsessions, a symbol of hope, fear, and wonder. The cultural fascination with first contact is rooted in the idea that it would mark a turning point in human history. It promises the ultimate answer to a question that has plagued us for centuries: are we alone in the universe? But beyond that, it offers the possibility of discovering an entirely new way of understanding existence, of being shown the vastness of intelligence beyond our own, and perhaps learning from it. Yet, for all the speculation, the reality of first contact remains elusive, and the ways in which we imagine it are as varied as our own dreams. In popular culture, the first contact is often depicted as a dramatic and life-altering event. Films like Contact and The Day the Earth Stood still have shaped our expectations, painting pictures of both peaceful encounters and moments of deep anxiety. In Contact, a scientist's lifelong search for extraterrestrial signals leads to the discovery of a message from a distant civilization, a message that changes the course of human history. It is a story of hope, curiosity, and the promise of knowledge, where first contact represents not only an encounter with another civilization, but also a reflection of our own growth and potential. On the other hand, The Day the Earth Stood Still presents a more cautionary tale. In this vision, first contact is not an opportunity for exchange, but a moment of reckoning, where an alien intelligence comes to Earth with a warning. The message is clear: humanity's reckless behavior threatens the survival of the planet, and unless we change our ways, we will be destroyed. The aliens in this story are not benevolent or curious, but cold, rational beings that view humanity's actions as a threat to the cosmos. This depiction taps into our fears that first contact might not bring peace, but a reckoning for our failures. But in reality, the truth of first contact might be something neither idyllic nor terrifying. It might not follow the paths laid out in fiction, where humans are either embraced or condemned by advanced civilizations. Instead, it could be far more subtle, perhaps something we don't even recognize as first contact at all. It might be a message so alien that it's incomprehensible, or it might come not in a burst of communication, but as a gradual, unfolding revelation that takes years, even centuries, to fully understand. As much as we imagine first contact in terms of grand, cinematic events, the reality might be quieter, more complex, and less dramatic. Still, the dream remains alive no matter how we envision it. The hope that we are not alone in the universe persists, driving our curiosity and shaping our understanding of who we are. What will it look like? Perhaps that's a question we'll only answer once it happens. The question of whether humanity is truly ready for alien contact is one that has haunted philosophers, scientists, and dreamers for centuries. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has driven much of our curiosity about the universe, but when faced with the possibility of encountering an advanced alien civilization, the reality becomes more complicated. Are we truly prepared for the profound implications that such a discovery would bring, or are we, as a species, still too fragile to cope with the vast unknown? Psychologically, the notion of first contact would be an enormous challenge. For centuries, Humanity has viewed itself as the pinnacle of intelligence in the universe, a belief deeply woven into our self-concept and our culture. The discovery of alien life, especially intelligent life, would fundamentally alter this view. It would force us to confront the uncomfortable reality that we are not alone, that our understanding of life and consciousness is just one possibility among many. The psychological toll could be immense, disrupting everything from religion and philosophy to our most basic sense of identity. How would we reconcile the knowledge that we share the cosmos with beings far more advanced than ourselves? Would it humble us, or would it drive us to the brink of existential crisis? Sociologically, the impact could be equally destabilizing. The global reaction to first contact would be impossible to predict. Would it bring humanity together, uniting us under the shared realization that we are not isolated in the universe, that we are part of something far greater? Or would it deepen existing divides, as different cultures, nations, and ideologies reacted in vastly different ways? The fear of the unknown, especially one as monumental as alien contact, could easily be weaponized, turning the discovery into a political tool. Governments might claim ownership of the information. Others might try to manipulate it to their advantage. In the age of misinformation, could we even trust the narratives that emerge around such a discovery? Politically, the world's readiness is even more uncertain. Alien contact would not only raise profound questions about our place in the universe, but could also have far-reaching consequences for geopolitics. Would governments work together in the face of this unprecedented event, or would the power dynamics of Earth shift, with some nations seeking to control the message or the alien technologies that might emerge? The political ramifications of first contact could range from an era of collaboration to a new Cold War over resources, technologies, and knowledge. The nature of the response could depend as much on our political structures as on the nature of the aliens themselves. Ultimately, the question of humanity's readiness for alien contact boils down to what such a moment would mean for our place in the universe. For centuries, we have wondered if we are truly alone. The answer to that question would shake the very foundations of our existence. And while we might hope for peace and unity in the face of such a discovery, the truth is that we may not be ready, not because we lack the technology or the curiosity, but because we are still struggling to understand our place in the cosmos. The arrival of extraterrestrial intelligence may answer many questions, but it would also open the door to an entirely new set of unknowns, ones that may prove even more difficult to face. As humanity continues its search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the idea of making contact with an alien civilization remains one of our greatest dreams. Yet, as the hope for connection grows, so too does the counter-argument. What if we don't actually want to make contact? The allure of discovery is undeniable, but the dangers inherent in such an encounter are not always given the attention they deserve. Could it be that, in the vast expanse of space, silence is not just a void, but a protective barrier, one that we may not want to breach? The first concern is the very real possibility that any advanced civilization we might encounter is far beyond our own, in ways we can scarcely imagine. As much as we long to find new knowledge, the implications of meeting a species that is far more technologically advanced could be catastrophic. Imagine a civilization with the ability to manipulate energy or matter on a scale we cannot fathom, a civilization capable of influencing entire ecosystems or altering the fabric of space-time itself. The gulf between us and them would not simply be one of technological achievement. It could be a chasm of existential magnitude. Our own history is full of encounters between civilizations with vastly different levels of development, and the consequences of such meetings have rarely been peaceful. The possibility that a more advanced civilization might view us as insignificant, or even as a threat to their existence, is a sobering one. This brings us to the concept of the zoo hypothesis, a chilling theory that posits that advanced alien civilizations are deliberately avoiding us. In this view, We are not being ignored because we are unworthy of attention, but because we are being observed from afar, much like animals in a zoo. The idea is that extraterrestrial civilizations are aware of our existence, but choose not to make contact, either out of ethical considerations or for reasons we cannot comprehend. They may be waiting for us to reach a certain level of maturity, technologically, socially, or morally, before allowing us into the fold of intergalactic interaction. In this scenario, the silence we encounter could be a form of protection, not just for us, but for them. By keeping us in the dark, they prevent us from doing harm to ourselves or others, preserving the cosmic order until we are ready for contact. But whether through caution or indifference, the silence of the cosmos can be seen as both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it shields us from the dangers of a contact we might not be prepared for, a kind of cosmic quarantine. On the other, it raises the question, why are we alone? Why have we not yet received the signals we so desperately seek? If we are being ignored, what does that say about our place in the universe? Are we simply too primitive, too unstable, to be trusted with the knowledge of other life forms? The idea that we might remain in the dark because we are not yet ready is a sobering one, suggesting that the silence we hear may be the universe's way of protecting us from a truth we cannot yet handle. As the search for extraterrestrial intelligence progresses, artificial intelligence, AI, has emerged as an indispensable tool, one that could dramatically reshape how we understand and communicate with alien life. The vastness of the universe and the complexity of the signals that might come from other civilizations present a daunting challenge for human researchers. The signals we detect are often weak, erratic, and completely alien to our way of thinking. To make sense of them, we need a level of analysis and pattern recognition that far exceeds human capabilities. This is where AI steps in, offering the ability to sift through immense amounts of data, detect patterns, and identify subtle nuances that might otherwise go unnoticed. AI's power lies in its ability to process information at speeds and scales that would be impossible for the human mind. It can analyze thousands of signals simultaneously, isolating those that show promise and discarding the noise that has long plagued the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Machine learning algorithms, trained on vast data sets, can identify patterns in the signals that humans might miss entirely. Where we might see a random burst of energy or a meaningless fluctuation in frequency, AI could see the rhythm of something deliberate, a message encoded in a way we have not yet learned to interpret. In this way, AI has the potential to become the first real bridge between humanity and the cosmos, translating the alien into something we can understand. However, the role of AI in this process raises significant ethical questions. If AI becomes the primary tool for decoding alien signals, who controls the access to that information? Who decides what constitutes a message and what doesn't? The possibility of receiving a communication from an advanced civilization is thrilling, but it also presents the danger of misinterpretation, especially if AI is left to make those interpretations independently. What if AI misreads a signal, mistaking it for something benign when it is, in fact, a warning or a threat? And conversely, what if it fails to recognize the subtleties of a message, ignoring vital clues that could lead to a deeper understanding of alien life? Furthermore, there is the question of whether AI, in its role as intermediary, might alter the nature of the communication itself. If an artificial intelligence is tasked with crafting responses to alien messages, to what extent is that response shaped by human programming, biases, and limitations? Could an AI communicate with extraterrestrial beings in ways that humans themselves might not be able to, or would it simply create a false barrier between us and the aliens, distorting the true meaning of their words? The very act of relying on AI to mediate such an unprecedented interaction raises concerns about the authenticity of the communication and whether it could ever truly reflect the intentions of both parties. As AI continues to play an ever greater role in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the ethical and philosophical questions surrounding its involvement will become more pressing. While its potential to decode alien signals is limitless, we must also consider the consequences of outsourcing such monumental decisions to machines. In the quest for answers, AI may hold the key, but whether it can fully bridge the gap between us and the stars remains uncertain. The day the signals stopped came with no warning, no sign that the cosmos had decided to fall silent. For years, scientists had been tracking the strange, complex bursts of energy, each one more promising than the last. The signals had grown in frequency and clarity, offering tantalizing hints of intelligence beyond our world. But then, one day, it all ceased. No explanation, no further signals, just an abrupt and unyielding silence. The sudden disappearance of the signals was as jarring as it was unsettling. For those who had dedicated their lives to the search for extraterrestrial life, it felt as though the ground had been pulled from under them. The work that had once been filled with anticipation and excitement now seemed futile. What had they been listening to all this time? Was it a natural phenomenon, some cosmic anomaly that they had mistaken for intelligent communication? Or had it been real, only to stop for reasons that no one could fathom? The loss of the signals reverberated far beyond the scientific community. Humanity's collective hope had been tethered to the idea that we were not alone in the universe, that somewhere, out there, other minds were reaching out, trying to make contact. With the signals gone, that hope was replaced by a deep existential question. Why had they stopped? The quest for alien intelligence had been driven by a desire for connection, for knowledge, and for the ultimate confirmation that we were not isolated in the vastness of space. Without the signals, what did that mean for humanity's place in the cosmos? Were we truly alone? Or had the signals never been meant for us in the first place? Theories about the reasons for the silence quickly began to emerge. Some suggested that the civilization sending the signals had simply moved on, that they had decided to stop communicating for reasons unknown. Perhaps they had grown bored of humanity's slow progress, or maybe they had found no value in continuing the exchange. Others speculated that we had simply missed our window of opportunity, that the civilization had sent its messages, and now that we had failed to respond in time, they were gone. Another theory posited that the aliens had been deliberately watching, waiting for us to reach a certain level of understanding or technological capability. But when we didn't respond in kind, they withdrew, perhaps in disappointment, perhaps out of a sense of caution. Then there were the more ominous possibilities. What if the silence was deliberate, a result of something darker? What if the civilization that had been reaching out had decided that humanity was not ready for contact, or worse, that we were a threat? The sudden absence of the signals could be a sign of their withdrawal, a retreat back into the safety of the unknown, leaving us with only our questions and our isolation. Whatever the reason, the silence left an emptiness that was impossible to ignore. Humanity's quest for alien intelligence, once a bright and hopeful pursuit, now seemed a distant dream. The day the signals stopped marked not just the end of an era of discovery, but the beginning of a new uncertainty, one where the silence of the cosmos spoke louder than the signals ever had. As humanity continued its search for extraterrestrial signals from the farthest reaches of space, a provocative theory began to emerge. What if we weren't looking far enough? What if the messages we sought had been hiding in plain sight all along, embedded within our own society, culture, or even technology? The idea that alien intelligence could already be among us, communicating in ways we had failed to recognize, shifted the focus of the search from the distant cosmos to the familiar world around us. The theory suggested that aliens might not be sending signals from distant galaxies, but could be using our own systems and technologies to communicate with us. After all, if an extraterrestrial civilization was advanced enough to reach us, it's conceivable they might have found ways to hide their messages within the very fabric of our daily lives. camouflaging them in ways that would make detection almost impossible. Perhaps their signals were woven into the structures of our communication systems, encoded in the algorithms we use to process data, or hidden within the endless streams of information flowing through the internet. In this scenario, the signals we were so eager to find weren't far-off beacons. Instead, they were encoded messages, quietly slipping through the cracks of our technologies. Maybe they were buried within patterns of electromagnetic radiation, undetected by the tools we currently use. Perhaps they were hidden in the intricate workings of our social media networks, embedded in the vast data clouds we rely on every day. The idea that alien life could have already planted their signals within our own systems suggested that we were overlooking the very thing we had been searching for. This theory brought with it a host of new challenges. How would we recognize such hidden signals if we had been blind to them for so long? How could we begin to search for something that might be so deeply embedded in our own technologies and cultures that we couldn't even perceive it? The answer, some believed, lay in refining the tools and methods we use to analyze information. Rather than searching for signals from distant stars or planets, we needed to reimagine the very idea of what a message from an alien civilization might look like. Could it be a series of seemingly random data points, patterns within patterns, that we had mistaken for noise? Could there be a form of communication encoded in our very infrastructure, waiting for us to decode it? Some researchers began to examine Earth's technologies with a new lens. They explored the way humans communicated, from early radio signals to the algorithms that drive artificial intelligence. Could extraterrestrials have influenced the development of technology itself, embedding their messages into our cultural evolution? What if the entire course of human technological progress was, in some way, guided by an intelligence not of this world? The search for hidden messages required a shift in perspective, a leap of imagination. The signals might not come from the vast emptiness of space, but from our own world, right under our noses, waiting for the right moment, the right minds, to notice them. If alien intelligence had already made contact, it might be a message more subtle and complex than we had ever anticipated, one that had been hidden in plain sight all along. In our tireless search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we have often focused on signals that are technological in nature: radio waves, electromagnetic pulses, and other forms of energy that can be transmitted across vast distances. We have honed our tools to detect these forms of communication, refining algorithms and building more sensitive instruments, all while seeking something that fits neatly within our understanding of what a message should look like. But what if, in doing so, we've overlooked something far simpler, something so close to us that we can't even recognize it as a signal at all? What if the very nature of alien communication is not technological, but biological, based on patterns we already encounter in nature, yet fail to interpret correctly? The idea that alien signals could be biological in origin invites a radical shift in our perspective. Instead of focusing exclusively on machines, frequencies, and artificial constructs, we could turn our attention to the living world around us. After all, life on Earth communicates in ways that defy the technological framework we've built for ourselves. The intricate patterns of animal behavior, the complex relationships between species, and the subtle rhythms found in ecosystems could all represent forms of communication, messages from alien intelligences that operate on a frequency beyond our comprehension. Consider the ways in which nature communicates through patterns, from the flicker of fireflies signaling to one another in the dark, to the rhythmic pulse of whale songs that travel across oceans. Life on Earth often uses biological systems to convey meaning. Could extraterrestrial beings have evolved to use similar biological signals, not dependent on technology, but woven into the very fabric of life itself? The patterns in nature, whether in the growth of plants, the movement of animals, or the fractal geometry of snowflakes, could hold clues to understanding alien communication. What if, instead of sending artificial signals across light years, An advanced civilization chose to encode their messages within biological phenomena, making the signals harder to detect but infinitely more complex. This raises a fundamental question. Are we looking at communication through the wrong lens? Our technological bias leads us to assume that extraterrestrial intelligence would necessarily communicate in the same ways we do with signals we can measure, interpret, and replicate. But what if the message is hidden in the subtle rhythms of nature, in the patterning of life, or in phenomena that we've long overlooked? Could the message we're searching for be encoded in the pulsations of living organisms, in the cycles of ecosystems, or even in the structure of DNA itself? The challenge of recognizing non-technological forms of alien communication is immense. It requires a rethinking of what constitutes a message and how we might receive it. Are we so fixated on technology that we fail to see the intelligence already present in the natural world? The search for extraterrestrial life might not just be a matter of finding signals from distant stars. It might be about learning to read the deeper, more intricate patterns of life itself, patterns that are everywhere around us, yet hidden in plain sight. If alien civilizations exist, perhaps their messages are as natural and biological as the world we inhabit. And perhaps, in this simplest form, the message has been here all along, waiting for us to recognize it. The task of analyzing raw signal data from the depths of space is an enormous challenge, one that has occupied the minds of scientists and researchers for decades. Signals from distant stars or possible extraterrestrial civilizations often come in a chaotic, disordered form, pulses of energy, fluctuations in frequency, or bursts of radiation that seem unintelligible at first glance. To transform this raw data into something meaningful requires more than just sophisticated technology. It demands a deep understanding of patterns, algorithms, and the complex task of translating noise into language. In many ways, the search for alien intelligence is as much an art as it is a science. The first obstacle in decoding a signal is its sheer unpredictability. Signals from space can come in many different forms, each with its own set of characteristics. Some are brief, fleeting bursts, while others may last for minutes or even hours, but in all cases, they require careful analysis. The primary challenge lies in filtering out the noise, the cosmic static, the interference from natural and human-made sources that surrounds these signals. What seems like an irregular anomaly could, upon further examination, reveal a pattern, an intentional design, hinting at intelligence. But without the proper tools and the right approach, the signal risks being lost, dismissed as mere interference. Once the noise has been isolated and the signal identified as something potentially deliberate, the next step is translating it into meaning. This is where the real work begins. It is one thing to detect a signal. It is quite another to understand what it is trying to say. The process involves identifying repeating structures, regularities, or sequences within the data, which could indicate a pattern of communication. In much the same way that linguists analyze ancient languages, scientists would need to develop a framework for understanding alien signals, deciphering their structure, identifying their syntax, and, ultimately, translating them into something we can interpret. The comparison to language is unavoidable, just as human languages rely on grammar, vocabulary, and context. Alien signals may possess their own form of linguistic structure that we must learn to recognize. But the challenge doesn't stop at recognizing patterns or translating structure. There is also the question of the meaning behind the signal. Human languages are not only built on syntax and structure, they are also shaped by culture, context, and shared experiences. So too, might an alien language be influenced by a civilization's biology, environment, and history? To translate an alien language could mean more than simply decoding its patterns. It could require understanding the unique worldview of the civilization that created it. The signals we receive may not be direct translations of human concepts, but representations of ideas and experiences we can barely comprehend. Ultimately, decoding alien signals is not just about finding a pattern in the data. It is about bridging an unfathomable gap in cognition and communication. The science of translating alien languages and algorithms is a field that, for now, exists at the intersection of imagination and mathematics, between what we know and what we are just beginning to understand. The journey from raw signal to meaningful communication is a long one, but with each breakthrough, we inch closer to answering one of humanity's oldest and most profound questions. Are we truly alone in the universe? And if we are not, what will it take to understand the message they've sent? The role of the media in shaping the public's perception of alien messages is both powerful and complex. As humanity pushes further into the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the media plays a crucial role in how these discoveries and the very idea of alien life are presented to the public. Every new signal detected, every potential breakthrough, is quickly spun into headlines, often accompanied by images of distant planets and dramatic interpretations of the unknown. The media's portrayal of alien communication has the potential to fuel public curiosity, but it can also spark fear, confusion, and even hysteria. The sensationalism that often surrounds alien contact plays a significant part in how society reacts to the possibility of extraterrestrial messages. When a potential signal is detected, the media quickly jumps into action, with broadcasters and journalists framing the event in a way that captivates and engages the public. Phrases like, "the biggest discovery of all time," or "a message from the stars," appear across news outlets, promising to reveal something extraordinary. While this approach is understandable after all, alien contact is a captivating subject. It often distorts the reality of the situation. What may be an interesting signal, worthy of scientific investigation, becomes transformed into something more dramatic, more mysterious, and sometimes more dangerous in the eyes of the public. The impact of such sensationalism cannot be understated. For many, the mere mention of alien life conjures images of flying saucers, hostile invaders, or cosmic threats. Hollywood has long shaped our imaginations, presenting extraterrestrials as either saviors or conquerors, rarely offering nuance or depth to their portrayal. This pop culture lens distorts the way people view the potential of alien communication. It is no longer about the search for knowledge or understanding, but about the anxiety of the unknown. Such portrayals can create a climate of fear, making it difficult for society to approach the subject of alien contact with the intellectual curiosity it deserves. Instead of seeing the discovery of a signal as an exciting opportunity to expand our understanding of the universe, the public may react with dread, waiting for the worst-case scenario. However, the media also holds the responsibility to educate and inform, to provide the context necessary for the public to understand the significance of these signals and the science behind them. If the media focuses only on the dramatic or sensational aspects of potential alien contact, it misses an opportunity to foster critical thinking, to explain the complexities of decoding a message and the potential implications for humanity. The media has a duty to present these discoveries not as a confirmation of alien invasions or the imminent collapse of civilization, but as the result of rigorous scientific inquiry, a call to explore and understand, not to panic. In the end, the media shapes not only how we perceive alien messages, but also how we respond to the unknown. It has the power to turn curiosity into fear, or to inspire wonder and excitement. The responsibility lies in its ability to balance the awe of the unknown with the grounded, thoughtful examination of what these signals could truly mean for humanity. Alien communication, when it comes, will challenge us to think beyond the sensationalism of popular culture and embrace the profound questions it raises about our place in the universe. In the vast sea of cosmic signals, some messages are almost lost to time, detected but misinterpreted, or even entirely missed. One such case is a signal that, for all intents and purposes, slipped through the cracks, its significance only recognized long after it was recorded. The story of this signal serves as a chilling reminder of how easy it is to overlook the extraordinary in the pursuit of the ordinary. The signal in question was detected in the late 1990s by a powerful radio telescope, a key instrument in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI, the team working at the time, expecting to find only the usual cosmic noise, barely noticed the anomaly. The signal was faint, irregular, and at first glance seemed like just another interference, a fleeting glitch in the system. It was buried in a sea of data, and given its unusual characteristics, there was little reason to assume it was anything more than the product of some terrestrial source, an earthbound interference, or even a malfunction of the equipment. The signal lasted for only a brief moment. Yet in that moment, it had the potential to answer one of humanity's oldest questions. It wasn't until years later, as the data was revisited and the signal reanalyzed, that its true nature became apparent. Upon closer inspection, the signal exhibited qualities that were not easily explained by known natural phenomena. It had a regularity, a repetition, and a rhythm that suggested it was not random. Its frequency, while not identical to typical radio signals, was oddly precise in a way that seemed deliberate. Experts began to speculate that it could have been an intentional transmission from an extraterrestrial source. By then, however, the window for full analysis had closed, and the opportunity to study the signal in real time had passed. What was once a missed opportunity was now a case study in what might have been. The technology of the time played a significant role in this missed signal. The equipment, while advanced for its day, was not as sophisticated as the tools available now. The filters used to separate noise from meaningful signals weren't as precise, and the team relied on certain assumptions about what a real alien signal might look like. The signal, being unlike anything expected, was immediately categorized as noise, a mistake that likely saved it from further attention at the time. Even with modern technology, signals like this can still be misunderstood, as our own expectations often shape how we interpret the data. This incident raises a fundamental question. How often do we miss signals we don't even recognize? As our search for alien life continues, we must consider the possibility that we are hearing messages every day hidden in the noise, buried under layers of data, too alien in nature for us to comprehend. The truth is that we may have missed countless signals already, simply because we didn't know how to listen. What other messages are waiting for us to hear, perhaps right now, just beyond the edge of our understanding? The alien message that almost got away is a cautionary tale, a reminder that the most profound discoveries may come from the signals we least expect. For decades, the idea of government secrecy surrounding extraterrestrial contact has been a topic of intrigue and speculation. From conspiracy theories to credible reports, the question of whether governments have knowingly concealed evidence of alien signals remains one of the most compelling mysteries of the modern age. If extraterrestrial messages have already reached Earth, many believe that the truth is hidden in secret government files, locked away from the public eye. The most well-known case of government secrecy is tied to UFO phenomena, with sightings and encounters reported by civilians and military personnel alike. These reports often fall into two categories: unexplained aerial phenomena and potential alien communications, both of which are believed to be deliberately obscured or dismissed by government agencies. The U.S. government, for example, has declassified a number of documents related to UFO sightings, but many of the more mysterious reports remain sealed. The public is often left to question whether these documents tell the whole story, or if what's been released is only a fraction of the truth. Declassified files, such as the Pentagon's release of its Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, reports in 2020, show that government interest in UFOs, and by extension, Potential alien intelligence has been far more serious than previously acknowledged. However, much of the content remains vague, leaving more questions than answers. What was not included in these reports? What specific data about extraterrestrial signals or possible alien encounters remains classified? The absence of concrete details in many official documents only fuels speculation that there may be far more hidden behind closed doors. Beyond UFO sightings, the secrecy surrounding extraterrestrial signals is equally mysterious. Governments may have received signals, whether through radio waves, electromagnetic pulses, or other means, but have chosen to keep this information private. The rationale behind such secrecy is often framed in terms of national security. If a message from an alien civilization could have profound implications for humanity, some argue, then it would be safer to control and manage that information. But there's also a darker possibility that alien signals may have been deliberately ignored or suppressed to avoid widespread panic, or perhaps to keep the knowledge of alien contact under the control of a select few. The history of UFO-related files, particularly those that involve possible communication with extraterrestrial beings, hints at a much deeper and more complex story. Some declassified documents suggest that the government may have received signals that were not immediately recognized or understood. These communications, if they were indeed alien in origin, could have been dismissed as anomalies, lost in the noise of other data, or simply misunderstood due to the limitations of the technology of the time. The potential for an entire hidden history of alien signals, one that spans decades, raises unsettling questions about how much we may have already missed or been told to forget. In the search for alien intelligence, the government's secret files may hold keys to understanding just how long we've been receiving signals and what those signals might mean. The truth, if it's ever revealed, could dramatically reshape our understanding of both the universe and our place within it. Until then, the mystery of what's hidden in those files remains an open question, one that continues to intrigue and haunt those who dare to seek the truth. The day humanity receives a clear, unmistakable message from an alien civilization would be one of the most pivotal moments in history. The first response, though not easy to predict, would carry monumental weight not just for the scientific community, but for all of humanity. The enormity of the discovery would require a careful, measured reaction, one that balances curiosity, caution, and the immense responsibility that comes with communicating with another intelligent species. The immediate response would likely be one of shock, disbelief, and awe. Governments, scientific organizations, and even individuals would struggle to process the reality of alien communication. The question of authenticity would be the first to arise. Was this truly a message from an extraterrestrial intelligence, or could there be another explanation? However, once the message is confirmed beyond doubt, the next question would turn to how to respond. Given the global nature of the discovery, the protocols for answering would be the subject of intense debate. In an ideal scenario, international collaboration would be paramount. It's likely that a united effort would form between space agencies like NASA, ESA, and other national bodies, with the goal of crafting a response that reflects humanity as a whole. Such a response would need to be scientifically sound, culturally respectful, and carefully constructed to avoid misunderstandings. Deciding on the content and format of the message would be as complex as the message itself. Should we send a direct reply? Or would it be wiser to first attempt a broader understanding of the alien language? What medium would we use? Radio waves, light signals, or even some other method, depending on how the initial message was received? These technical decisions would require an unprecedented level of global coordination. However, the political dynamics of responding to an alien message would inevitably complicate matters. Nations, each with their own interests, would likely compete for influence over the response. The idea that one country could speak for humanity would be contentious. Powerful nations might push for a response that aligns with their interests or worldview, while others would argue for a more inclusive approach that represents all of humanity's diversity. The global response could be complicated further by national security concerns. If the message from aliens contained advanced scientific knowledge or potentially dangerous information, some governments might wish to keep the information classified or withhold certain details from the public until a clearer understanding of the situation is achieved. The challenge of responding would not just be political, it should also be psychological. How would humanity cope with the knowledge that we were no longer alone? Would it unite us, creating a sense of shared purpose and global cooperation? Or would it deepen divisions, with some fearing the consequences of alien contact and others seeking to exploit it? The way nations and individuals respond to the message would shape the future of human civilization in ways we cannot yet foresee. Ultimately, humanity's first response to an alien message would set the tone for how we approach our place in the universe. The decision to communicate, to engage with the unknown, would forever alter the course of our history, how we see ourselves, how we relate to one another, and how we understand the cosmos. It would be an unprecedented moment of both wonder and responsibility, one that would test our readiness to join a larger, more mysterious universe. Once the message is sent, humanity would enter a period of profound uncertainty, caught between hope and trepidation. The question that would linger in everyone's minds is not if we would receive a reply, but when. The response could take years, even centuries to arrive, depending on the distance between us and the alien civilization. In the meantime, the world would likely be left in a state of restless anticipation, the silence of space echoing with the weight of expectation. Would the aliens be listening, or had they moved on, uninterested in engaging with us? Would we be waiting for something that would never come? The waiting period would raise practical, psychological, and philosophical questions. How would humanity cope with the uncertainty? The excitement of making contact would be tempered by the long, often uncomfortable wait for an answer. As the years stretched on without a reply, would the initial excitement fade into frustration or despair? It's easy to imagine that, over time, the fervor for a response might subside as everyday life returned to normal and the idea of speaking with extraterrestrials faded from the forefront of public consciousness. Would governments and organizations continue their work, monitoring for any signs of a reply, or would the effort dwindle as other concerns took precedence? The long wait would test humanity's patience, resolve, and, ultimately, its belief in the idea that we are part of something greater than ourselves. The consequences of sending the message in the first place would also weigh heavily on the global community. In an era where international relations are fragile, would we regret opening a line of communication with an unknown species? Some would undoubtedly fear the risks. What if the aliens, instead of offering wisdom and friendship, saw our message as a threat or a challenge? What if their response was not one of curiosity but of hostility? The message could serve as a beacon that attracted unwanted attention, leading to unintended consequences. Could we even comprehend what such a civilization would want from us, or what dangers might lie in the potential knowledge they offered? The prospect of forging a connection with an extraterrestrial intelligence would raise new questions about the vulnerabilities of our civilization, our place in the cosmos, and whether we were truly prepared for such an encounter. On a more philosophical level, the implications of engaging in a long-distance conversation with another civilization would be profound. Time itself would become an additional layer of complexity in the relationship. The vast distances between us and the aliens would make the conversation feel more like a one-sided monologue, each message taking longer to reach its destination, every reply delayed by years or even decades. It would be a conversation across time and space, an attempt to connect with a civilization whose experiences, thought processes, and perspectives may be entirely alien to our own. The nature of such an exchange would force humanity to reconsider what it means to be present in the universe. In a conversation so delayed, with knowledge traveling at the speed of light and more than likely shaped by millennia of different development, how could we possibly understand each other? The very act of waiting for a response would remind us of the vastness of space and time, and of how small, and yet how remarkably connected, we are in the grand scheme of existence. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has come a long way since its inception, but the mysteries surrounding alien life remain as elusive as ever. While we've made tremendous strides in scanning the skies, deciphering signals, and contemplating the nature of life beyond Earth, the fundamental question, are we truly alone in the universe, still lingers unanswered. As we peer deeper into space with ever more sophisticated technology, the enigma of whether we will ever make contact with another intelligent species grows more profound. The universe is vast, its possibilities nearly limitless, and for all our advances, we are still left with more questions than answers. Looking ahead, the search for alien life will be shaped by the technologies of tomorrow. The next generation of telescopes, spacecraft, and AI-driven algorithms will give humanity the ability to scan far deeper into space, potentially identifying exoplanets that may harbor life, or even listening for signals in frequencies that we haven't yet explored. New methods of analyzing cosmic data will emerge, perhaps unlocking clues in areas we've previously overlooked, hidden in the faintest electromagnetic waves, in the genetic code of distant planets, or even in the movement of galaxies. The future of this search lies not only in reaching farther into the cosmos, but also in the growing realization that the form of communication may not be what we expect. Future generations will likely encounter signals and phenomena that defy our current understanding, requiring us to expand our definitions of intelligence, communication, and life itself. As we look to the future, it's clear that the quest for understanding alien life will continue to evolve. Today, the search is largely defined by radio waves, lasers, and electromagnetic signals. Tomorrow, it might involve the exploration of quantum communication or the detection of biological signatures that we haven't yet identified. Perhaps, one day, we will uncover evidence of life in forms completely unlike what we know, stretching our imaginations and forcing us to rethink what life can be. Future generations will likely have tools and insights we cannot yet fathom, pushing the boundaries of our exploration and understanding. Their methods of listening, seeking, and interpreting may be more advanced, but the underlying drive to know what lies beyond will remain the same. Yet, with all this progress, the question of alien life may not be so easily answered. The mysteries that lie ahead are not only about finding the other, but about understanding the context in which we find ourselves. Will the discovery of another intelligent species alter our place in the universe, or will it be just another step in the long journey of cosmic self-awareness? The unknown future of this quest is filled with possibilities, and the next chapter in humanity's search for extraterrestrial intelligence might not just be about making contact, but about confronting our own limitations and redefining our understanding of life itself. The journey ahead may take us to places we can't yet imagine, challenging everything we think we know about our existence and our place in the cosmos.